All right, so here is the Apple iPad app for XR. It is similar in many ways to the Mac OS X version of the XR Edit app, but there's also quite a few differences, so I'm going to point those out. Probably some differences that need to be fixed just for the consistency of the platform, and I'll point those out. First thing you're going to see is the mixer overview is in widescreen mode, and that means that you can see 9 large faders and channel strips on your screen. And just under the upper right-hand side, you see a little button here I can tap, and that's going to go to like a condensed mode. I went from just 9 faders to all of them through 18, essentially. And of course, the master fader is always up on the far right-hand side. You may notice that on the XR Edit app for the Mac, the right menu where you see your main, auxes, and effects are actually in between your 18 channels and 4 effects channel strips and the master. That probably is a better layout so that you've got your master separated, and that would be the master for your main and all of your auxes and your effects send. Master channel on the far right will change based on what you're mixing to on the right-hand menu here. And same with your effects, it becomes the master send for the effects. So may not be a bad idea if that right menu was in between all your channel strips and the master fader, just like the other application. All right, so the main thing we're going to do here is just take a look. First thing we're going to do if we're mixing mains is, of course, hit the main Mix To button. We can scroll using a single finger swipe and mix our channels as you would expect. We can come in and change the color and name of the scribble strips. You have to do that by going into Setup and clicking on General, doing a channel layout edit, clicking on the right scribble strip section. You can now color. So let's go ahead and set drums up as green, and we'll do kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3. Go back and make those green. I'll scroll up, hi-hat, overhead, all right, and then I can click done, get out of that section. So that's everything labeled there for my drum kit. So let's go ahead and label up our instruments. So I'm going to put instruments in blue, bass, guitar 1, because you got to have at least 2 guitars in a band, guitar 2, keyboard. All right, and hit done. So that's got my full channel strip labeled. Let's get out of the edit mode. And now we can go through here and see we've got 8 channels of drums, 4 channels of instruments, and 4 channels of voice. I've got my iPod here for playback. And of course, we've got our 3 effects units. And if you watch my other videos, you know that I've got a combinator on the left-right master insert. I'll go to effects real quick and show you that. Right now, in this version of the iPad app, you only have control over the 3 or 4 effects that are built in. So if I change that on the Mac app, you'll see the graphic here and it will work. You just don't have any editing capabilities. So for example, if I click on the reverb, that comes up and I can edit all the parameters. If I click here, you get those parameters and you can change that. But once you pick one of the non-effects units that are in the X series, you'll just get a coming soon, and I am tapping this delay, and it doesn't come up for edit. However, it does work. So let's just double check that real quick. It's set via my computer, so I can certainly edit there. But if I want to come up and go to effects number 3, I can send effect. It's coming in on 3. I can hit unmute, and you hear the delay. Okay, mute back, aux send down, or effects send down. That works for now, but I'm sure in the very next release of the iPad app, you're going to have full control and editability for all of the effects. All right, let's get back to our channel layout. The iPad app has a pretty cool way to do groups or DCAs. You don't have that ability right now at all in the Mac application. It's just blank in the area where it says groups. So pretty easy to do. Let's go into our setup. Let's edit the channels. And now we can go back, and you remember that I can reposition. If for some reason I wanted my vocals to be before the instruments, I can come down and just drag all of those before. And if you want to scroll further to the right, you have to use 2 fingers to do that. And I can access the hidden channel strips that are back there. So that's just real easy. Keep in mind that you're not changing the numbers. It's now 1 through 8, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then 9 through 12. Not a real logical reason to do that, I don't think. So you can certainly do it. And I'll put it back here. Oh, and that's something you have to watch out for. I was going to get to next. When you're moving channels around, make sure you place them in the slot between 2 channels, or you will group them together, which is the next thing we're going to do. So let's come down. Let's double finger scroll back to the left, and let's go ahead and get our mix up for our drums. And I'm going to come back. I made my first mistake, and that is that I was just mixing to effect number 3. The rule of thumb for anybody mixing on an app like this is make sure you always return to home, because that's basically where you think you're mixing to. So unless you're going to go through and do a monitor mix or do an effect send, quickly go back and always have your resting place or your home place be your main. Okay, so I'm back to my main. I'm mixing my drums, and I've got kick and snare. I usually have my toms about like so, hi-hats here, and let's get overheads up pretty good here. All right, so that may be the mix that I want for those drums. Now, once I had that, of course, we would typically assign that to a DCA on the Behringer XR18, and then we can control all the volumes with one fader as a DCA group, and that makes it simple. And of course, we can always go back to the individuals to rebalance the drum kit. Here, we can do the same thing. It works like this. Simply drag to the snare over on top of the kick, and you'll see it group. And on top of that, and if you see the top bar where it's turning gray, you'll notice that it's basically linking all these together, and you'll see the result here in just a second. So as a default, I'd probably always have my template set up just like this. Now, if I scroll back up over here, you'll see I've got a new scribble script that I can label, and I want to go ahead and put green drums. I use all caps for my groups, typically just upper and lower for the individuals. All right, so I'm going to hit done on that. And let's go ahead and do the same thing on my instruments. All right, so all 4 instruments. Now I can come down here, see a new scribble strip for the instruments. That's going to be blue. I abbreviate like so, and done. Let's do a 2-finger swipe. Try to avoid the 1, or you'll do what I just did. All right, so we'll go ahead and group the vocal mics now. All right, so there's 13, 14, 15, and 16. We can scroll to the scribble strip, make that pink, and label that done. And now we essentially have everything taken care of. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of the edit mode and go back to my overview. All right, so now I can come over to any of the groups and touch anywhere in the fader area and bring up the faders. Keep in mind that if you didn't get a mix on the instruments like I didn't, you can click on the right arrow in the blue scribble strip that says Instruments. It will expand that back for you, and now I can adjust that as needed. Now, there is one issue that I'm sure Behringer will fix, and that is I've lost my individual scribble strips, so I really don't know what I've got here. And if I expand the drums, I know what I've got, but I've got to think about that. It was kick, snare, tom, 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 hi-hat, overhead, overhead. When you expand, I believe that the large green drum scribble strip should revert back temporarily to the individual so we can see what we're mixing. I need to make an adjustment on the kick down. I need to turn that up. And where's the hi-hat? I've got to count over and say, oh, it's right here. Let's get that up a little bit higher. All right, and then I can collapse that group again. Okay, and then I've got my new mix. And again, I can turn the whole mix up or down. I can collapse the instrument mix. And I can now turn the whole instruments up or down. When you see the faders look like they're getting louder and louder on the two on top, that's just because of the logarithmic volume tapering in the fader itself. So it's just trying to mimic that. So it looks kind of weird as you go high. And of course, as you get lower and lower, it looks like you're not getting the same ratio between, your louder and softer channels here. But you are because of the logarithmic tapering of the fader. All right, so to get vocals, I'd want to get my lead vocal up where I'm at, get my background vocals done here, and let's call that a mix, collapse it, and show starts. So you should have easy mixing now by just having your three groups, and I would mix about like that. That works good for me. I can mute and ungroup. If I wanted to do an all mute for my effects, I could group those as well. So I could only hit one of the mutes instead of all three to mute effects in between songs. Same thing here. I can hit mute on the drums. It mutes the whole group. So that works. All right, so that's just a real quick overview of the basic layout of the channels. We'll have more videos that go into more detail on the channel strips and the DSP, the processing, and monitor mixing. Be sure to leave us a note on YouTube and check out our Facebook user group, Behringer XR.